Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well. And today we've got the big news. Star Wars Rise of Skywalker has finally crossed the $1 billion mark. Yeah! Oh my goodness, guys. It's made $1 billion. Oh my goodness. Finally, after 24 days, Rise of Skywalker was finally able to pull itself and drag itself over the $1 billion mark. And there was much rejoicing. By maybe a few shills on Twitter. But basically, the movie has crossed $1 billion, which is what I've been saying was going to happen at some point in the future. But I do think it's pretty funny that this is the number that we have. It's $1,751,000. So it has literally scraped itself across the $1 billion mark. But what is more interesting to me is that finally, yes, finally, Rogue One's domestic number total has now surpassed before inflation, Rise of Skywalker. That to me is a much bigger story than the $1 billion, because guess what? All of us knew that this film was going to reach $1 billion. There were many people out there who have been putting in my comments still. People who are subscribers to my channel saying it's not going to reach $1 billion. It's not going to reach $1 billion. Well, guess what? It's reached it, and that's what I've been saying for a long time now. It's been in my projections since forever. Even when I had my projections months before, or rather weeks before the release, I said it'll make between $850 and $1.1 billion, and guess what? That seems to be holding true. It now seems to be going much to the lower end of the projections after I turned in the first 2 weeks of the overall numbers. Because remember, it made around $724 million in the first 2 weeks, meaning that the minimum the film will make will be around $1,035 million, and the maximum was at the time $1.4 million. Well, obviously that's not going to happen. Even that average of $1.2 million, that ain't going to happen. So the fact that we're looking like this film could potentially have made around 70% of its entire total, or a little bit less or a little bit more, in its first 2 weeks just goes to show you how little legs this film had, how little rewatchability this film had, and where the current state of Star Wars is. Of course, it needs to be known and it needs to be pointed out, this fact right here. As you can see, the bold number means it's a larger number. In the right-hand corner, you have Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, unadjusted numbers for inflation. In the left-hand corner, you've got Rise of Skywalker. Rise of Skywalker, on its fourth Tuesday, made $1.8 million. Keep in mind, this is like the bonus Tuesday. This is when you get discount tickets. And this film made just a little bit more than when it did on Monday. Compare that to where Rogue One did, where it made almost $1 million more. But what's to say there? But comparing day to day, Rogue One continues in its numbers to outperform the unadjusted for inflation numbers. That is really sad. Keep in mind that this $2 million is actually much higher when you adjust for inflation. This $481 million is actually much higher when you adjust for inflation. The fact that we can now officially say, for the very first time since the run began for Rise of Skywalker, this number for Rogue One is now officially higher. And it seems very likely that it's going to continue to happen, because guess what? You're going to see a drop-off in that Wednesday number. You're going to see another drop-off in that Thursday number. And Friday, you might see that uptick. But to be perfectly honest, do I honestly think that you're going to see Rise of Skywalker match the, let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 to $13 million of Rogue One in its fifth weekend? No, I honestly don't. Seeing that would not be consistent with the amount of drops we've seen from weekend to weekend for the Rise of Skywalker, meaning this trend is going to likely continue, meaning this film, Rise of Skywalker, will be coming in underneath not just the adjusted for inflation domestic box office for Rogue One, but the pre-adjusted numbers, meaning that the film is going to come in under $532 million and could potentially come in just above $500 million. Now, where the film is likely going to overtake Rogue One is actually in the international marketplace. Now we actually see that this number is indeed closing in on where Rogue One was. Again, this number is before you adjust for inflation, which is a little bit more difficult to do when you go country by country. Some people out there are trying to say, oh, if you use the same rate, it's going to be roughly the same, which I guess I could understand to an extent, but I like to try to be as exact as I possibly can at this point in time. So the international box office will definitely, in all likelihood, after this weekend, be much higher than Rogue One at this same point in time, before inflation. But the fact that domestically, keep this in mind, where is Star Wars the most beloved? What country does Star Wars receive the most love and receive the most amount of attention? United States. It is an American movie. It is an American phenomenon. Yes, it has been done well in many other countries. It's the reason why in all the other countries around the world where it's been released, it has made $500 million. But America has always been the top dog. The fact that you have this last film in the Skywalker saga, the 9th film, the film that was supposed to be the end game of Star Wars, coming in all likelihood domestically underneath pre-adjusted for inflation numbers for Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, which made just over $1 billion, which cost at least $75 million less. Much more likely than not, it's more than that, more or less. It actually probably cost much less than Rise of Skywalker did, because I don't believe or buy into that $275 million. I think it's closer to $350 when you take into account reshoots, etc. Not to mention that ad campaign, might have been well above the standard, which is normally you multiply that by 1.5. Wouldn't be surprised if that was much higher than that. You're looking at a film that probably cost around $650 to actually produce and make. Meaning that, they're making some profit now at this point, according to my projections, based on a $350 production budget, meaning a $525 total cost. Again, that number could be higher, could potentially be lower as well. I've always admitted that fact. You're looking at a $75 million actual net profit, net gain. Compare that to Joker, $553 net gain. Compare that to a Knives Out. Compare that to a Rian Johnson movie, Knives Out, which is at $93 million. There is now a situation, technically, where Rian Johnson's Knives Out could potentially be more profitable than a Star Wars movie. Frozen 2, obviously, $496 million in actual net profit. This is insane, guys. This is truly insane. I didn't even make that connection before. Obviously, Jumanji 3 making $216 million in net profit, net gains. The third film in the Jumanji franchise making more in net gains, net profits than a Star Wars movie. That is absolutely bonkers insane. Seriously. That is something that should not happen. Disney, you have an ultimate failure, an ultimate fail on your hands. Oh, great, you crossed the $1 billion mark. All the people in the world are running the story. It's crossed the $1 billion mark. It's only so many movies that have done it. So Disney has set a record for its own personal box office for the year, while the rest of the box office has slumped. Probably because Disney has tied the hands of so many theaters and has worn out so many people with all of its big budget crap that people don't want to go to see the smaller films anymore, that people don't want to spend the money anymore. Again, I think Disney's at least part of the problem there. But the fact that we are now in this position, and again, I'm going to keep on saying it because it's going to continue to be true, where you have a worldwide box office that is tepid at best in comparison to the previous films. The lowest grossing Star Wars film since Solo: A Star Wars Story. Solo lost $200 million. This is now in the same discussion. It's not losing money, according to my estimates. Some people might say it is. But according to my estimates, it's not losing money. But it is now the second lowest grossing film out of all the Star Wars films since 1999. That should speak volumes. That should speak volumes. The fact that this film is underperforming even other movies, again, talking about net profits here, underperforming such movies as Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace. And I know there's people out there that are prequel defenders. And again, I think the prequels, at the very least, have consistent stories that are well made and well told, even though the CGI is not that great, even though the dialogue sucks, and even though there are definitely things that we can be critical of. This movie is doing so poorly. This is the Endgame. Endgame made over $2 billion. Endgame is, before you adjust for inflation, of course, the highest grossing film of all time. And this film can't even beat its own other Star Wars brethren. It can't even beat the $1.3 billion of The Last Jedi, which was one of the most divisive films of all time. Now, obviously, I think that's the reason why this film's not doing well. But dear Lord, anyone that's going to try and spin this as a victory for Star Wars, a victory for Disney, say, oh, well, it made $1 billion and that's great. Think about how many crappy movies have made $1 billion and think about how those films did in their franchises after that movie. Think about also how you are now in an age where the hardcore fans have obviously left the franchise behind and all you are left with are the normies. Now, I'm not saying that if you like this movie or you're still watching these movies that you're not a fan. I'm not saying that. But you've obviously lost the hardcore base that could have pushed and should have pushed this film to the stratosphere. You've lost so many fans. Now, of course, what you're going to try to do, you're going to try and be like, oh, look, we're going to give you an Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and hey, maybe Jar Jar Binks will be in it, and oh, Knights of the Old Republic, you want that, right? You like the EU, right? Let's dangle these things in front of you as we continue to destroy it until they change leadership, until Kathleen Kennedy is gone. This is a failure. This is a failure for Kathleen Kennedy. I usually give her the benefit of the doubt when she says, oh, at least she's good with money. She can't create anything. She can't keep anything straight to save her life. But you know what? At least she's good with money. Now, I can't even say that anymore. Now, I can't even say that with just how poorly this film has done in comparison to the others. Again, Rogue One, before you adjust for inflation in 2016 numbers, is now beating in the domestic marketplace, is now doing better, and will likely end its run better. This film will likely come in as one of the lowest grossing domestic runs of a Star Wars movie, just ahead of a film called Solo: A Star Wars Story, which by all admissions was a complete and utter failure. That is the company that this film is going to be in. Not The Empire Strikes Back, not The Force Awakens even, financially speaking, but the Solo: A Star Wars Story. If that is the legacy left behind by Kathleen Kennedy, it's suitable. But notice the words there, left behind. It is now time for Disney, Bob Iger, investors, shareholders, George Lucas, shareholder still, to speak up loudly. If you want to stop the bleeding, because guess what? This is bleeding. You go from $2 billion to 1.3 to barely $1 billion. You're bleeding. You're bleeding fans. You're bleeding money. And now it is time for you to cut it off. Cut off the I'm trying to think of the word here. The rotting limb. Cut off the rotting limb that is holding you back. Because until you do, the bleeding will continue. There is a good chance that we may not ever see another Star Wars film that breaks $1 billion because of the people currently running it. The only way that is going to change is if you change. And that's all I got to say about it. Let me know your thoughts about this. Isn't it amazing? It broke $1 billion. Yay! Can't wait to see the people spin that. But it's now officially behind Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. Officially behind. Before adjusted for inflation. Like, not even saying, oh, well, if you adjust for inflation, of course it's going to be. No, like, seriously, look at this. In fact, by the end of its run, I could see Rogue One completely kicking Rise of Skywalker's ass in the domestic marketplace. May not do the foreign totals, but also remember, it's been several years since that time, so it was kind of making sense that Rise of Skywalker should have made more money overseas. But even when you adjust for inflation, though, it's not going to be much. So let me know your thoughts about that and all the things we talked about in the comment section below. Also, please make sure you vote in the Wednesday Raven Awards. I'm still going to be posting the links to the ballot. You have up until February 7th, February 8th. Again, whenever the Oscars, the night before the Oscars, so that Saturday night before the Oscars, right after the live stream that I normally do on Saturdays, I will be closing the polls, and then we will announce the winners on Sunday in a live stream in contestation, in boycott of the Oscars, because obviously they're crap. Great job that Joker got 11 Oscar nominations, but dear Lord, all the people in the media are just whining and complaining about that. And now there's going to be a push for those same people to say, Joker shouldn't win, Joker shouldn't win. It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be interesting to see. But if you'd rather watch something more entertaining, with better films nominated, with a lot more fun categories like Best One-Liners, that include F Your Mercy from Alita Battle Angel, I would recommend the Raven Awards. So check that ballot out in the description of this video. Also, please think about supporting the channel. If you want to buy some merch, got some links to get to some t-shirts. You also, of course, can buy disc plates. You can get some awesome metallic posters like the ones I have of Alita and John Wick behind me, on the wall behind me. And also, you can find out many other links there. Support me on Patreon, subscribe, store. We get extra bonus content. I've been trying to, after my videos, I post extra content covering articles that I was not able to cover on the main channel. So, yeah, if that kind of stuff interests you, t-shirts, extra content, giveaways even, go check out my Patreon subscribers, our tiers. Think about supporting the channel. Anyway, you guys are all freaking amazing, beautiful people. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless. And now I want to give a shout out to my January Patreon members: Animation Commentator, Brian P., Dion, Divex, Elizabeth M., Enrique Evangelista, Fan Addicts of Film, Father Christopher Miller, Hail Father, Frank the Tank and the Shawhan Wiener Dog Clan, Harold Francis, the Hunky Chunky Funky Monkey, Inflamed Wood, It's a Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jeffrey Toon, JJ Jonathan Jerembeck, Lady T, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin, Orange Hat Reviews, Outpost Dyer, Perpetual Punster, Riff Magos, Rosetta Allen, Sir Lanceloto, Theodore Bendon, The DJD Show, Those Two Ball Guys, and Tina B. and Sharon Ferguson. Sharon! Thank you so much for being Patreon members. And of course, to my Subscribe Star peeps, Larry, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, G2Cool99, Darkstar57, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., US 888209 Fast, Dean Heiss, Harold Francis, J-Rod the Beer Guru, Nebalan G. Adams, and ZK Man. Thank you so much for supporting me this month. You guys freaking rock.